Well, India's strengths are multifold. I think clearly in manufacturing and fermentation technologies and so on, we actually have a great deal of strength. And it's obviously manifest in success stories like Biocon and so on, but also just in academia. I think in training in human resource training in the sector. I think we do well. I think several of our chemical engineering departments, for example, in technology institutes, are excellent places for training talent there. So manufacturing is a great strength. In principle, bioinformatics is also a great strength. Bioinformatics, though, as an industry itself, as an industry sector, has not seen value. And so you can't point to a success story like Biocon in terms of monetary success and scale in bioinformatics. But you have to think of bioinformatics as an enabler. And so that's another sector that's very strong, and particularly in human resources in India, and how it gets utilized by the other sectors, by the applications, there's a lot of potential there. I think in industrial biotechnology and in biofuels and so on, I think we're at the early stages. It's these are sectors where, again, the good news is that I think in each of the areas, whether it's esoteric areas like synthetic biology or next generation sequencing, in every area we have some representation. We're a large enough country that we don't miss out on sectors. But definitely the strength has been in biomanufacturing and contract research services was a sector that grew well. Clinical research is another sector that has size and scale. But the other sectors are still small, and they're just building up. I think in agricultural research, in uses of biotechnology in agricultural research, I think by and large in agricultural research in this country, we haven't invested enough. I think there are pockets of excellence, but for example, yesterday Secretary DST pointed out how the sector gets so little funding compared to other sectors. So, agricultural research is an area that I think there's probably potential for huge growth in the years to come. And we have the basic foundation to move forward there. The government, as we've seen in the last couple of days, is quite proactive. I mean, there is, you saw, the heads of ministries of health, Department of Science and Technology, Secretary of DBT, and representatives from their ministries, talking about various initiatives and so on. So I think the government has moved into action, I think, but as you heard at the CEO conclave, I think there is a lot of angst today about the regulatory bottlenecks and just the lack of predictability on the regulatory side. And I think that needs to get sorted out. And I think where the debates have been placed. I think there's a bill in Parliament. I think there'll be continued debates while that bill is discussed. But I think what hopefully emerges from all of this is a regulatory framework that will be supportive of the industry development. India has chosen a democratic path, right? And so when it comes to issues like regulation and so on, that will have to come through proper public debate, and so it would take longer than than in a autocratic regime where someone can just slap down the regulatory framework and just say, this is how we'll go forward. So it has slowed us down a bit, yeah. And I think, but I think it's the healthy way to do it, because then, you have created consensus, and then, it's a more stable situation. Absolutely. I think I think these have been some of the most important advocacy issues that ABLE has worked on, and I think constantly the Secretariat, the Executive Committee members are spending time, energy, writing draft documents and sending it up to Delhi. But I do think that's one of the principal roles for ABLE as the advocacy group for the industry, and sometimes we feel frustrated that we've not been able to achieve enough, but that, as I said, given the nature of our society, I think that is to be expected, but it's certainly an important role for ABLE. Well, I think the biggest achievement at Strand has been that we've been able to create an innovation engine, right? It's an innovation engine that has been able to cross disciplinary boundaries, right? And so it would be very easy to just brand Strand as a bioinformatics company, but that's not what it is. It is Strand is a genuinely a computational biology company. So we actually have computer science and the life sciences coming together in a very, very symbiotic relationship. And so in fact, when we hire and when we've actually built our workforce, we've actually focused on getting the best-in-class computer scientists and the best-in-class biologists into the company, and then making them talk to one another. So I think one of the great achievements for Strand has been to be able to draw that kind of talent, hold them together, and get them to cross boundaries. Now, that in principle has created a value in that workforce, which is starting to pay off. But in other ways, I think we have managed at Strand to work with a business model that allows the Strand to provide roughly around 30% of the global market with analytic tools for research biology. Now that's an achievement that very few Indian companies can actually talk about, right? We have created very complex scientific products that today reaches about 2,000 laboratories all around the world, and so we've learned to play the game at the with global competitors and so forth. So, but bioinformatics, as I said, is not an end in itself. It's an enabling platform, because it's a tools business. And so what we have done at Strand is that we have leveraged our bioinformatics and computational biology capabilities, one, to build a complete new business on tox screening based on systems biology models of the liver. And it's an in vitro in silico platform that gives you mechanistic insights to toxicity of compounds, which could help in early stage drug discovery work, right? And this is a breakthrough in many ways. And so this will be a second line of business for Strand, that we will actually screen compounds and give back reports on toxicity. And more important, reports on the mechanisms involved in the toxicity of a specific compound. The third business that Strand is embarking into now is molecular diagnostics, and this will be more clinical work, and will leverage again our strengths in informatics, but also our recently acquired sort of capabilities in being able to do sequencing and various types of functional genomics work in the laboratory will be brought together in the diagnostics play. I think you really have to be very, very careful in planning the time that it will take to bring ideas to fruition. Okay, I think there's a huge tendency to underestimate the amount of time it will take, and I think that is probably the most important piece of advice. So when you plan and you say, oh, I can do this in the first 18 months, assume it will take 36 months, right? And I think if you plan with enough slack that way, then it's more likely that you can execute that plan, because it's never as quick as you think it will be.